Welcome to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard, here along with my co-host, Meredith Brito. Meredith, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm not red today like I was last week.
You're not red, but you did say that you're pretty awfully tired because you only got 2 hours of sleep.
No, not 2 hours. I just said the past 2 days I didn't get a ton just because our sorority had our formal and then one of my parents came to town.
It seems like a pretty fun weekend. It was just Easter weekend. There's a lot of family activity, some fun stuff going on. And, Monday's been off to a good start. We actually started the show on time at 4 o'clock today. So, the day for me has been going pretty well.
And you said my name correct for the first
And
time?
okay, that's like the third time I've said your name correctly. Come on
Okay.
now. You got to give me some sort of leeway
All
here.
right.
But starting off the show, there are four other teams that had a pretty good Easter weekend. And, well, you better be careful with that keyboard, Meredith. Uh, Four other teams had a pretty good weekend for college basketball. That's Villanova, Oklahoma, UNC, and Syracuse. Those teams will be in your Final Four. Villanova and Oklahoma are the two seeds playing April 2nd at 5:09 p.m. and UNC Syracuse playing April 2nd at 7:49 p.m. Both of those Central Time. So the Final Four is set, and UNC. Okay, put that one in there because people thought UNC would go that far. Oklahoma people thought that they would go that far. Villanova. I've heard people say I don't know about Villanova. I think they're a good team. And then Syracuse, nobody said Syracuse was going to the Final Four when this all started. People thought Syracuse would be bounced out in at least the second round. The first round, maybe. Second round, yeah, they were definitely done. So Syracuse has made their run. I'm pretty sure they're the first 10 seed to make it to the Final Four in NCAA history. So, the Final Four is set. And what do you think about these teams?
I think they're actually doing pretty well. I mean, Oklahoma had a great game. They were just draining buckets, and Buddy Hield had an amazing game. I got to watch some of that. And then I got to watch some of the Villanova game. And I remember when we were doing our brackets in here, everyone picked Kansas, and Brooks was saying he thought Kansas was going to win. And just to see how they came out on top, and they look like a really, really good, strong team. So I think Villanova has a chance to beat Oklahoma. And a lot of us also thought that Virginia was going to go on and win. We thought that was an easy shoo-in, but Syracuse might be a team to watch out for. They can always pull off an upset, but I think UNC might be the team to win it all.
Well, in the world of college basketball, it's when you get hot. So Syracuse is hot right now. They granted they had to come back from a big deficit to come back to beat Virginia. And some may argue, well, Virginia lost that game. Syracuse didn't win. Virginia lost it. But still, you got to give Syracuse credit. They've played some really talented teams up until now. And I want North Carolina to win. They're my pick to win from here on out. However, I am scared for the Syracuse game because of the way Syracuse is playing. North Carolina is the better team, but I think Syracuse may be on a more of an uphill more of a streak than North Carolina.
I agree, but sometimes, when teams have that hot streak, sometimes the hot streak cools down. And UNC's been on this hot streak all season. And they're a really, really strong team. I don't see very many weaknesses, and that's why I think that they're going to be able to continue because, like you said, Virginia lost the game, and Syracuse just took advantage. So if UNC keeps playing the way they've been playing, they don't have to do anything extraordinary or anything. They can still win.
And going on top of that, just the UNC Syracuse is a very particular, a very interesting matchup, just because it's UNC, North Carolina, and just because that Syracuse is doing what they're doing. Then you have Villanova and Oklahoma. People, at least around here, have been trying to write off Villanova as they're not this good of a team. That how did they get this far? They beat Kansas. And they did it in a way to where I was at least impressed. And people are putting Oklahoma, North Carolina for their championship game. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was UNC Villanova.
Neither would I.
In fact, I'm going to I want to say I want to choose Villanova. I feel like Villanova, Oklahoma had a very impressive win when you beat Oregon 80-68. I think they had the more impressive game. Villanova did. Villanova, in my opinion, played a little bit tougher opponent in Kansas, winning that one 64-59. But that one's a toss up, and it, it- I what do I want to say? I'm leaning toward Villanova, but my heart is saying Oklahoma. So this is one that's probably going to change all week for me. But right now, let's just say I'm going to go with Oklahoma and UNC in the title game.
Uh,
So that would be my matchup.
I'm gonna go with Villanova UNC. Just watching how Villanova came away with the win in the last few minutes and how they were able to make all of those free throws really shows what a strong team they can be and how they can handle under the pressure. So, I mean, Oklahoma wasn't really under pressure in that last game. It would have been interesting to see if Buddy Hield and the rest of the team could have made every single free throw had they been in the situation Villanova was in. But I think Villanova has a really strong chance. And Kansas was a team that a lot of people expected to continue on. So it'll be really interesting to see those two teams battle it out.
And with that, we're going to move on from the Final Four, and we're going to go to the Rays Cuba exhibition game that featured Fidel Castro and President Barack Obama in the stands. It was the first Major League Baseball game in Cuba in 60 years, I believe. It was a very historic moment for Major League Baseball. And a lot of the Dominican players, even one of the Rays player, and I forget his name, he was one of the first Cuban players to defect from Cuba and then return to playing Cuba. So he left Cuba, wanted to go play Major League Baseball, and then he was there in Cuba playing for the Tampa Bay Rays. So the game went on, and um the Rays won. I think the score was 5-1 over the Cuban national team, and that was a very monumental moment for Major League Baseball, the United States, Cuba, everything, because it wasn't just an exhibition game. It was tied into a lot of politics that have been going around with opening up embassies in Cuba and diplomatic relationships. So I just want to talk about the Rays versus the Cuban national team game, and just try to get your thoughts on it.
I mean, I think it's a really great historical moment. You know, for the longest time, the United States and Cuba haven't been on the best of terms. So to see President Obama and the Tampa Bay Rays team actually go down there and play a game, that's pretty monumental. They could have come to us, but we went to them, which shows that we feel secure going into that territory now. But I think this opens up a lot of opportunities for other international games. Who knows? Next, we may play Mexico. We may play a bunch of other teams. So I think it's really interesting to see things like this happen and compare American League Baseball to the rest of the world.
So now, opening up these relations with Cuba, do you think that there will be more games played in the near future in Havana, on Cuba? Do you think that I know that the Major League Baseball now opened up the rule to where Dominican players are allowed to go to the Major League, go to MLB and play. Yeah, before, for a lot of players, they would have to like find their way into Major League Baseball because of the rules that were there. For example, Yasiel Puig of the Los Angeles Dodgers, that he really didn't come from the Dominican Republic, legally, what he wasn't supposed to do what he did. So like, do you see like an expansion into Cuba? Could they get their own team? Probably not. That's probably a far away one. But do you think that we'll see more of the Cuban national team, or do you think we'll see more games in Cuba? Maybe during the All Star break, something that I would have liked. During the All Star break, maybe Cuba comes in and plays the exhibition game against the Dominican Republic, or maybe some other countries that have a really great baseball heritage. Just play during the All Star break and get them some exposure.
I mean, for me, I think this was mainly a political thing. So I think we may be seeing them play in Havana or in the United States for the next few years until we establish really good relations and show the American people we feel comfortable with Cuba now. So, I mean, there's going to be such a huge difference between this Cuba team and the Toronto Blue Jays, for instance, who have always played American baseball. I don't think we'll have a team like that playing against us all the time. But, I mean, I think it's a really great opportunity for us just to have an international battle. But I see us possibly having other international games. I think this could open up to other opportunities in other countries.
Yeah. And we're going to move on to the next biggest topic in the sports world from this past week. Coach K in his post-game comments versus Oregon. So what exactly happened was an Oregon player, it was toward the very end of the game. An Oregon player took a shot against Duke in the Oregon Duke Sweet 16 matchup. And after the game, it was reported that Coach K, how do you say his name? I always have a hard time saying his name.
I don't know. I think that was closer than I can get.
Mike Krzyzewski. I'll just call him Coach K. Coach K is pretty cool. Anyway, Coach K said that you're too good for that when going to shoot the ball during the end of the game. And the Oregon player was Dylan Brooks. So he was telling Dylan Brooks, hey, you're too good to be shooting the ball toward the end of the game when the game's at a reach. And what made this story blow up is that when he was confronted about it during a conference, he said that he didn't say anything, that he did not say anything to this player. And then video came out saying that he said it, and then he admitted it. And so now people are getting on his case because
he's two-faced.
Well, yes, you're two-faced. You're lying about what you said. Why didn't you just say, yeah, I said that? Why are you telling this kid this? Like, and a lot of people brought up Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen has tripped two people, and like you're telling this kid you're too good to be taking these shots at the end of the game. And people are saying, well, coach, you should probably worry about your own players than somebody who's on Oregon.
I agree. I mean, he's being paid to coach Duke. He's not in charge of refereeing the game or coaching the other team. So I think when you're the Duke head coach, you're supposed to keep up with your players and say, hey, the game may be out of reach, but don't let this bother you, or don't let this affect the rest of the game. Like, we've had a really great run, whatever the case may be. But I just think if you do something like that, you have to own up to it. It doesn't make you look too great in front of the public when you come back and say, oh, yeah, I guess I did do that. It's like, you know what you did. You know what I mean?
It's like, it's one thing to say it because whatever, he said it. It's another thing that, like, you said it and then you blatantly lied saying, I didn't say this.
Exactly.
And the only reason that you admitted to it now is because they caught you on camera saying it. Like, any other way, he would have said, yeah, I never would have said that. But because the video came out, he knew, yeah, I have to admit that I said this. And that's probably the thing that irks people the most is that, why even lie about it? Like, deal with your own players. You have your own team to coach. Don't worry about Oregon. You know, don't worry about their players.
Exactly. And I mean, I just think it's horrible that he had to have the verification of the video to tell the truth. Because imagine if there were a bunch of other cases like that in other sports. Like, imagine if Ray Rice said, no, I never did that. And then the video came out and went, oh, I guess I did. Like, that doesn't make you look good. It makes you look even worse.
I mean, granted, I'll give Coach K this. I don't think he was on the level of Ray Rice.
No.
But that was
the first video I could think of.
That is a whole nother discussion right there. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll start the 3-point shoot around where we each give our 3 topics that we want to talk about the most. You'll listen to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. I'm Paul George. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke F-A-S-T. Fast. Life is why. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Well, here we are again, and I got to tell you, Jim, this match has me really concerned.
That's right, Ron. In one corner, we have a powerful heavyweight, a train, weighing in at a whopping 6,000 tons. And in the other, this hasty lightweight challenger, a car, at just 1.5 tons.
This does not bode well for the car or the people in it.
Ron, this is one of those rare moments where I actually find myself at a loss for words.
This driver can't think he can beat a train.
I can hardly bear to watch.
It's no contest. Every day, people are injured or killed trying to beat a train at rail crossings. Trying to beat a train is more dangerous than you think. See tracks, think train. For more safety tips and information, visit ctracksthinktrain.org.
Welcome back to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard. With me is my co-host, Meredith Brito, and we're going on to the 3-point shoot around where we each give 3 topics and dish on them. So my first topic is, does a UConn women's basketball team ruin basketball? And so this has been a discussion for some odd reason. Okay, UConn women, they are one of the most dominant sports team in United States history. I mean, that is my take. They go in and completely throttle opponents. They're looking for their 4th, 5th national title in a row. I've lost count. And they've won darn near 90-something games in a row. This team is just this team is just unreal. They played number 5 Mississippi State the other week, and they beat them by 60 points. It was 98. It was exactly 60 points. How do you beat a number 5 team 98-38? Like they went in there and completely walloped Mississippi State, who was one of the best teams, or one of the top teams in the SEC. I mean, they went in there and completely made them look like a first 4 team in the NCAA tournament.
Well, to go back to your question, I don't think that ruins women's basketball. I think it makes them a little bit more exciting. And especially, like, if you ever get close to even beating that team, that's going to add, like, a really great resume to your team and really get them hyped up. But I get what you're saying, like, it kind of ruins it because they're better than everyone else. And it kind of gives that number 5 seed, like, not as much of a chance as if they were to face someone else. But I think it just excites women's basketball even more.
Well, I don't think the argument is, do they ruin basketball? I think people are just tired of them winning. When somebody wins constantly, you're just like, okay, this sport is just boring to me now because we know who's going to win. So thus it's ruining women's basketball.
Not always.
Level.
I mean, there's always teams that go on these really hot streaks, and then at some point or another,
well,
they
this
seem
is
to
one
fall.
heck of a hot streak that they're on.
For sure. But, I mean, there's always a chance that a team's going to fall at any point. I mean, I remember one year, like, the Green Bay Packers were going undefeated after winning the Super Bowl, and everyone thought that they were going to be, like, the supreme team, and I even got a little tired of them winning, but I thought it was exciting to see, like, each week if someone was going to be able to knock them off their undefeated streak.
Well, I guess the difference between Green Bay Packers is that was the next season. This has been 4 or 5 years running now, and people are just assuming that, well, look, nobody can beat them, so why even try?
I mean, each team has a fair shot.
I mean, that is true. I mean, there's 2 teams on the court, and you still have a chance to win, so you just got to find a way to win. Well, I mean, that's been the conversation. Does the UConn women's just dominance just ruin women's basketball? And I guess the answer for me is just, it may, I guess, if you look at it that way. They are just knocking opponents down left and right, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. Meredith, your topic is Josh Norman saying that Odell Beckham Jr. is not a top 5 wide receiver. Why did Josh Norman say that?
I think Josh Norman said that because of their little interaction they had when they faced earlier this year. Remember, like, Odell Beckham Jr. got suspended right after they had some controversial words.
Oh, yeah.
They went at each other, and he had the hard hit. So I think Josh Norman, he's trying to be a little bit like Richard Sherman. He's trying to throw shade at all the players he can. He's trying to make noise on Twitter. So I think this is just one of his things where he's getting bored in the offseason. He's like, who can I target and make some interesting news out of? So I think going back to that situation was the one thing that made him feel that way. But, I mean, to me, I don't think Josh Norman has a place to speak. Josh Norman just had like the first amazing year of his career, where Odell Beckham Jr. has only been in the league for 2 years, and both of the 2 years he's been amazing. And I would definitely take 5 cornerbacks before I would take Josh Norman, whereas I don't know what 5 receivers, or if there are even 5 receivers I would take over Odell Beckham Jr. right now.
I mean, you can say what you want, but why are they even fighting right now? It's like, it's the offseason. NFL's in hibernation mode, really. Everybody's in hibernation mode, really. Like, why are they still going at it?
Well, like I said, I think he's just getting bored in the offseason. He wants to make some noise. And it seems like he's trying to have these Richard Sherman tendencies where he wants to talk on the field and he wants to talk on social media. So I think by doing this, he's trying to make noise and make everyone kind of know, hey, I'm Josh Norman. I play for the Carolina Panthers. Hit me up. I'm pretty amazing.
Well, stop it, you two. Stop it. How about that? Now, what are the tweets that I'm hearing about that were said? Got them pulled up right over here, and they said, as we try to pull them up, okay, here we go. So what was pretty much said was, Odell Beckham Jr., and I'll quote, "That boy should thank me for all I've done for you. You're welcome, though, LOL." Then Josh Norman replies, "At Odell Beckham Jr., as your boy at Drake would say, trigger finger turned to Twitter fingers, huh? I'm not going to subtweet you, LMAO. So what's up?" They just don't like each other, do they?
No, and then Odell ends the conversation by, it looks like he's hiding in grass.
Well,
I don't know.
The Panthers do play the Giants next season, correct? I'm pretty sure they play each other. Oh man, when that happens, somebody make sure they get out the boxing ring and make sure they can go 12 rounds, because that's what they're gonna need to end this.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, do you think Josh Norman's a top 5 corner right now?
I think they're both. I'm not even gonna put them in categories. I think they're both very, very good at what they do, and that should be the end of the discussion. Because we start putting them into categories, they're just gonna start fighting. So,
I mean, I would take Odell before I would take Josh Norman, though.
They're both very good at their positions, and they just need to they just need to calm down and just go play the game.
What a diplomatic answer.
I mean, it's true. What's not diplomatic, however, is my second topic, which the Raiders rent in Oco Coliseum, and I assume that's how you say it. It's big O period little C little O. So the Raiders rent in their Coliseum that they currently stay at has tripled. Now, if you don't know, the Oakland Raiders were trying to move from Oakland to Los Angeles, and the deal kind of fell through, kind of didn't. They have an option to move to LA, something like it's a whole deal. However, for a city that's trying to keep Oakland, this seems very counterproductive when you're trying to keep a team in their stadium when you raise rent like by triple the amount.
I mean, it has to offend you a little bit if you're the city of Oakland that your team was thinking about leaving you in the dust, but I don't think it's right for a stadium to raise the rent on you, especially 3 times the amount. That's a whole lot of money right there. So I think it's wrong, but that's just me.
No, the argument is that the city's trying to get back some taxpayer money that the Raiders have costed them. Because, sports teams, a lot of their stadiums are funded by the taxpayers, and that they're trying to squeeze what little money they have left for the Raiders to pay off some debt or something like that. I've heard people use that excuse. I'm not sure if it's true, but if you really wanted to keep this team, this seems like a counterproductive way to do it.
I agree, but maybe they were preparing for them to leave. Maybe there was something at the NFL conference when they were deciding what team was going to go to LA that they were preparing for Oakland to be the first to jump up and raise their hand and say, I want to leave. So,
and they kind of were the first to jump up and say, I want to leave. So,
I mean, if I'm a fan in Oakland, of course I want my team to stay there, but like you said, it is kind of counterproductive for them to do such a thing.
Well, what's also counterproductive, at least for the Los Angeles Clippers, that Blake Griffin is cleared to return and he started serving his 4-game suspension. So Blake Griffin broke his hand in an altercation with a staff member of the Clippers. Some words were said. Blake Griffin's character was called into question. It was this whole thing, and now the Clippers are going to get him back. And the Clippers are they're hanging in there when it comes to the playoffs. So now the question becomes, as a team, do you want Blake Griffin back?
Of course. Blake Griffin's probably the best player on that roster, and he can only help them once they reach the playoffs. As long as he isn't a locker room disturbance, other than that one altercation, if he gets along with his teammates and his coaches, I mean, what harm is there?
It seems like so far ago that Blake Griffin was hurt and then he wasn't playing. So now he's coming back, and is it possible that Blake Griffin may just mess up a little bit of the rotation that Clippers got going? But will it take a little bit for the chemistry to get back? I mean, I know he's your friend, he's your teammate, but maybe that on-court chemistry, it may take a couple of games to get back. Maybe, you don't know, maybe he could still be a little bit of a problem in the locker room. I don't think he is. I think he's a very decent player. But should Clipper fans or the Los Angeles Clippers be nervous about Blake Griffin returning to the court?
I don't think so. I don't think they have to be nervous until the playoffs actually come around because, I mean, the regular season games are going to be a great test to see if he's going to be good in the rotation again, how the team's going to react with him back in. And then once playoff comes, then you can make your decision. But Blake Griffin's an incredible talent. I think he'll only make their team better.
So now, let me ask you this question. Should the Clippers be worried if Blake Griffin comes out in the first couple of games and just absolutely stinks it up? He just scores 7-8 points. He misses a lot of shots. Defense is a little bit questionable. Should they be worried? What approach should they take?
I wouldn't be worried. If I were the coach, though, if he started off not so hot, I'd take him out for a few minutes and then throw him in every few minutes. Just have little intervals, get him back in. And then if someone else is having a really hot game for the next 2 or 3 games, then maybe consider having them start and then having Blake Griffin substitute. But I'm not worried about that. I think Blake Griffin's going to come back, and that won't be too much of a concern. He might just have a rough first game.
And then, that would be understandable for Blake Griffin. He's been out for a little bit, and it may take him a little bit to get back into the groove of playing NBA basketball, get back into the groove of playing with his teammates on the Clippers. And that's going to do it for this segment. When we come back, we'll finish up the three-point shoot around with a couple of topics, and then we'll play a game. So you'll listen to the Extra Point here on WEGO 91.1 FM.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Making it green is making sure the air in your home is healthy for your family to breathe. Make sure you test your home for the presence of radon. It's easy. To learn more, call 866-730-GREEN. Preserve your family's health and well-being. Get your home tested. That's living healthy and green.
Make it green. Green, green, green. Make it green. It's your home, it's your dream. It's your dream.
Make sure you test your home for the presence of radon. It's easy. To learn more, call 866-730-GREEN.
A message from the U.S. EPA.
And we're back with the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard, along with my co-host, Meredith Brito. And we're going to talk about now, finishing up the three-point shooting around, my third topic, NFL and concussions. Do you feel for those players? Now, what I'm saying about these players is that a lot of these older players that played in the 60s, 70s, a lot of them are coming out here saying that, you know, it's hard for me to remember things. It's hard for me to walk. I'm constantly in pain. I know one player said he doesn't really remember the name of his kids. So now the question becomes, do you feel bad for those players, or do you think that they played, or do you think that, look, you played with the risk known to you and that this is just the consequences of what happened?
Well, I don't think back in the day, like in Junior Seau's time, a lot of people knew about the entire risk of concussions, whereas recently we had the movie Concussion come out. We've had a bunch of studies come out. So I think the players nowadays have the responsibility of, hey, you're out there on the field, that's up to you. But these older players, I definitely feel for them. Not being able to remember the name of your kids, that's just heartbreaking. And especially, like, can you imagine how hard it would be not to remember, like, little everyday things and to lose your short-term memory? That would just be awful.
I mean, what it's come down to now is that a lot of people are talking about how, look, you knew the risk, which I don't think they actually did. I think they knew concussions were a thing,
but they didn't know it impacted your brain.
But they did not know that this is the extent that it went. They did not know that, look, this is possible for this to happen. And not even think about the brain aspect. Just think about your body. A lot of these players, Antoine Randall, a couple of weeks ago, I saw an article about Antoine Randall, and he's like, I can barely walk up and down stairs right now. And the guy played not too long ago for the Washington football team. So it's like these players, they're hurting right now. A lot of these are old retired players, and it's kind of heartbreaking to see what their body's been reduced to.
For sure. And I mean, I definitely feel for those players, especially not knowing all of the effects that come with having a concussion. And concussions seem like an everyday kind of thing. And back in the days, like, my dad didn't even know what a concussion was when he played middle school, high school football. And he felt like he had one now that he knows what the effects are of a concussion. So I think just better research has allowed them to know what's going on. But the players out there right now, they understand what's happening to them when they get a concussion. So it's kind of their responsibility to decide, hey, am I going to keep playing this game, or am I going to and suffer the consequences, or am I going to retire like Calvin Johnson did?
I mean, I've played middle school and high school football, and looking back on it, I do feel like that I maybe had one concussion, but never really got it checked out. So I don't know if that's gonna have an effect on me or not. I'm not trying to like worry about it, but I do feel that for a lot of kids, and we're talking NFL level right now. But think about college, think about high school, think about just Pee Wee Little League. It's not though they gotta hit hard. You just gotta take a hard hit, to the head. It's just one wrong move, and these little kids, whether they're 6-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 30-year-olds. I mean, you take a wrong hit. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's gonna do damage, and
For sure, especially if you're young.
and so now you got to think about the long term aspects, the long term consequences that you may face if you get a concussion. So the question I think a couple of weeks ago we asked was, would you let your son play football? And I'm pretty sure my response was no, because I don't want to go through that as a parent.
Well, my response was it really depends on the build of your child. Because if your child's really skinny and you know he's going to take a lot of hard hits, then no, I'm not going to throw him out on the football field. But if my kid can handle something like that, that's a different story. But he has to be heads up certified. I know Roger Goodell's been establishing this program where they're learning to tackle and not tackle with their heads and keeping their heads up. And I think that's a great program to have these little kids go through before they step out on a real football field.
The next topic that we're going to do real quick is Tiger Woods is uncertain for the Masters tournament. So who would you pick to win? First of all, Tiger Woods, if you ask me if he's ever going to win a tournament ever again,
Or finish a tournament.
I'd even go for that low of a blow. Good Lord. But if you ever think that he'll finish a tournament or win one, it may be time to start thinking that maybe Tiger Woods isn't the player that he used to be, and that maybe he won't win a tournament anymore. But we don't know. But who would I pick to win? Look, honestly, I don't watch golf a lot, but I heard this one kid, Roy McIlroy, is a good golfer. So I'm gonna go with Roy McIlroy. He's currently sitting third in the ranking, so I'm gonna go with old McIlroy.
Mm-hmm. And McIlroy's doing really well in a tournament right now. But if it were up to me, I'd go with Jordan Spieth, the reigning winner from last year. Really young kid, has experience on this course. I think Bubba Watson also has a really good chance. He's won the tournament before. I think Ricky Fowler could be up there. He's been having a really hot season. But for me, it has to be Jordan Spieth. And I don't think Tiger Woods is going to play in this Masters. I don't think he should play in any golf tournaments for a long time because he keeps complaining about his back, and it's kind of like, to me, if you have a back injury, take care of it until you're 100% healed and you can play at the level that you've been playing at for your career. But I don't think Tiger's going to be able to get back to the way he used to be, which is a little sad.
Well, now we're going to go into our game where, honestly, I just came up with during the commercial break. And it's going to be sports hypotheticals. It doesn't have a name, but it's hypothetical questions that we want to see what our responses would be and what you may think. So, obviously, the first one up is March Madness. So, my question would be, would you rather win the NIT tournament or lose in the second round of the NCAA tournament to Lehigh? The Ocho, Noah Gardner, has walked in. He is now on the third mic. He is the choir. Noah, what would you rather do?
Well, first of all, this is my kind of show because apparently I have a lot of hot takes and people make fun of me for them. And so this is great to be here. And, it was between losing in the NCAA tournament and winning the NIT. I think it would depend personally on me where the program's at, but I would much rather lose in the NCAA tournament than win the NIT. Most certainly.
Me too. You're playing against better talent.
I feel like winning the NIT would just give you a morale boost, to be quite honest.
I mean, yes, but playing in the NCAA tournament, if you're a player, that gives you a better chance of going into the draft.
You know what the NIT stands for?
What?
The not in tournament.
Ooh.
Okay. I would not want to win this NIT over going to the NCAA.
We're the best of the people that didn't make it.
We go to school at Auburn University. We're not even in the NIT.
Well, that's why I said it would depend.
I would take the NIT right now over losing in the second round of the tournament at Lehigh. Duke.
Well, no, I would much rather be playing in the NCAA tournament because if
but the question is, would you rather win the NIT or lose in the second round?
I would much rather lose in the second round because that means I won a game in the NCAA tournament.
I would rather want to win the NIT.
You remember the last time Auburn won a game in the NCAA tournament, Jared?
Do I remember the last time Auburn won a game? Is the real question.
Well, I mean, you more than certainly do. I'm sure. But the thing is, it's understood that if you're in the NCAA tournament, you're better than all of the teams in the NIT, or for the most part, you are. And so that is operating under the assumption that you would win the NIT. So technically, if you're in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion, you're better than the NIT. You don't need to win the NIT. You've kind of technically, I guess, already won the NIT because you're in the NCAA. You get what I'm trying to say?
I agree with Noah.
We're gonna go into the next one because I think that this one's right up the Ocho's alley. Would you work once a week in the stadium of your team's biggest rival, so for instance, the Alabama Crimson Tide football team, for a season, picking up their garbage, working the turnstile, and silently enduring their drunken trash talking, if it meant your team would win the national championship / title game / tournament cup? Would you? Would you endure that for a whole season? Just, I'll spice it up. Auburn's not even a lock to win the national championship. It's just to get to the college football playoffs. Would you sit through that whole season just for Auburn to go to the college football playoffs, and there's still a possibility of them losing?
Not a chance.
Wow.
Not a chance.
The orange and blues run out.
Not a chance. Look, that is how deep. Like I am pro Auburn all the way, but just going to the college football playoff, no,
that's not enough.
Look, first of all, I mean that is a year of my life I will never get back. Some things you can't unsee or unhear. Okay, and think of the punishment that is for me. That is purgatory. Okay, that is not a great place that I would want to be at. I mean, just personally, and just no. I'd much rather be in the seats at Jordan Hare, watching us play our hearts out every week than having to work at Bryant-Denny.
Same, and I don't want to be picking up trash, period. So I would roll it out right after you said that.
I mean, I don't know. I thought that
Alabama's a big stadium. That's a whole lot of trash to pick up.
I thought that you guys would take the ball or take the fall for Auburn just to see it. I really thought the Ocho would
Would you?
No. No.
Then there's no problem then, Jared.
I mean, true.
That's just not my kind of thing. I mean, hands down, that'd be embarrassing. First of all, I'm Meredith. I wouldn't want to have to pick up garbage after the fan base that I don't like with a passion. Hesitant to say hate, but it is a burning. I'm all Auburn. All Auburn. If anybody knows me, this decision makes complete sense. So, Jared, I guess you don't know me that well.
Well,
if it was doing other kind of work, if it meant me doing something for the New Orleans Saints Corporation, if it didn't mean me being a janitor or something, I might consider it from the Atlanta Falcons. But
look, Jared,
the Atlanta Falcons have to make it into at least the NFC Championship for me to even work for the Saints.
And here's the thing, Jared. The other day I had been talking to some people, and they were asking me hypotheticals about like potential play-by-play jobs that I would consider taking when I'm older, because we do some play-by-play for WGL for Auburn softball, and that's what I want to do with my life. And the thing is, I was asked, would you like to be the? They asked me, would you take the job of Alabama play-by-play if it was offered to you over a smaller school that you're at? And Meredith, I would disagree with you. I would not take the job at Alabama. Just personally, let's say I'm at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I would stay in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and bear the rigid temperatures of the tundra that is Western Michigan, instead of going down to replace, and be the play-by-play over at Alabama. I couldn't do that.
I mean,
I'm all Auburn.
For me, I might be contradicting myself because my last statement didn't make a lot of sense after I thought of it. But I mean, to do play-by-play for Alabama, that's kind of a big job in itself.
But if Alabama was willing to hire me, other big programs would be willing to hire me. I would take any other big program at that point.
Then for sure. But I mean, over a smaller school, I'd pick Alabama. I mean, it's more exposure for you. It's a bigger game to cover. It's a bigger team.
Once again, if Alabama had seen me and was wanting to hire me, because Alabama's up there, once again, I'll give them their credit. That is an illustrious school, like you're pointing out. They're great at football. Great at a lot of things they do. It's a great school. I mean, but I'm still just, if they're going to offer me, someone else big will offer me as well, because Alabama is at the height. Nobody has been able to build a program like Alabama and have it sustained success.
Well, I'm glad you guys had fun with those couple little hypothetical questions. But when we come back, we are going to talk our extra point, which is going to be a doozy. You're listening to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM.
Woohoo! All right.
What is it?
I got into state.
Yes. What's the other letter?
Oh, no.
If you're a young man and fail to register with Selective Service within 30 days of your 18th birthday, you will not be eligible for financial aid.
No.
To register, visit sss.gov on your computer or smartphone. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. I had no idea how hard it would be and what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood and ways for me to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP. It had articles about the basics, but also information about the hurdles I was facing. Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And we're back on the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard, with my co-host Meredith Brito, and we are finally to the last part of the show, the Extra Point. And what is it? Well, the NBA has recently been talking to the state of North Carolina about their new law that is I'm not sure what the actual law is called. But people have been calling it, outrageous. And so the thought is the NBA may end up moving the All-Star game out of Charlotte, North Carolina, if this law holds up. So I'm about to explain, the two things this law does. The first thing is, it bans people who are transgendered from using a bathroom that they affiliate with. So, for example, if you are born a male, you must use the male bathroom, even if you've had the surgery to become a female, and vice versa. If you were born a female but went through the process to become a man, you have to use the female restroom. And B, what this law also does is that any cities inside the state of North Carolina cannot pass any anti-discrimination laws without it going through the state. So what the law is saying is that you can't pass any anti-discrimination laws without our say-so. And so now the National Basketball Association, along with other big companies, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Walmart, to name a few, are saying that they do not appreciate this law. They do not like it. And this isn't the first time we've seen companies respond to states. It was Indiana before with their law. It was Arkansas, the headquarters of Walmart, with their law. And Walmart saying we don't like this, and then there was a whole talk of is Walmart about to move their location? And then today, Georgia also had a similar law on the docket, but it was vetoed. They decided to veto the religious freedom bill because they were hoping that it would aid the chances that they would get a Super Bowl. Atlanta's building another dome for the Falcons, and they were hoping to host a Super Bowl there. So the question becomes, do you think the NBA should move the All-Star game from Charlotte, North Carolina? And is it a right call for the NBA? Would you be upset at the NBA?
I mean, if the NBA is worried about being controversial and going to some place that supports these laws, then I would say move it. But you have to go somewhere that would be okay with moving it on such short notice. And, I mean, every state's probably going to have a law that someone doesn't like. And I mean, with the Georgia thing, I was a little upset personally when I heard that they might not allow the Falcons to have a Super Bowl because they built this nice new stadium. And I was really looking forward to it. Maybe the one Super Bowl in my lifetime I might be able to go to. So, I mean, I think if the NBA is just worried about being controversial and wants to avoid the controversy and have anything say that they possibly support the bills, then yes, move. But I mean, it's a really tough call.
Well, I think what you have to look at is this simple thing right here is that this isn't the first time a state's done it. Indiana did it. Arkansas did it. Georgia technically tried to do it, but it failed today. And that these organizations, Google, Microsoft, Apple, the NBA, the NFL, they're standing up for things that they believe in. And the NBA just believes that this law discriminates against people who watch, NBA basketball. And that you got to think about it in this respect. How are you going to police that type of law? How are you going to tell someone that's transgendered and to use the other bathroom, especially during the All-Star game weekend where there's going to be a lot of people who have to use the bathroom? How are you going to police that? So the NBA, the NFL, Google, Microsoft, these companies are saying, you know what, just stop, because this law does, and especially the second part where cities are not allowed to pass their own anti-discrimination laws. Like, well, why shouldn't be cities allowed to do that? I mean, other cities are. What makes these cities different? So what it comes down to is that the NBA stands for this principle that they're going to stand behind, and that whether you look at the Charlotte law and agree with it or disagree with it, you can't disagree with that. First of all, it's illogical because there's no way that you can implement it. There's no way that you can enforce it. And second of all, it does discriminate against a certain population in the United States. That, it does discriminate against people who are transgendered. Because first of all, how are you going to tell they're transgendered? Are they going to have to carry a card with them or something? And the in the NBA is just totally against that. They've been against it for quite some time. So this was obvious. And honestly, if Charlotte was to lose the NBA All-Star game, I wouldn't be upset, because the fact of the matter is the governors knew that passing this law would have a backlash, because it happened in Indiana, it happened in Arkansas, it was happening right now in Georgia. They knew there was going to be backlash. But let me tell you something, money talks, and when money starts leaving, you're gonna say, wait a minute. So when NBA starts saying, you know what, we're gonna move, the state's gonna be, wait a minute, let's talk about this. And then this law is probably going to fade into oblivion, like it should, because it does discriminate against people. And, if the NBA All-Star game does move, it's going to suck for all the people who bought tickets to go to that game. But you know what? If Charlotte keeps that law, it's going to suck for all those people that this law affects, because you pretty much are discriminating against a certain type of people. And the city's not allowed to pass any anti-discrimination laws that may come up in the future. Well, you're saying, well, what laws will, that need to be passed, in the next, 2-3 years, because, it should be all covered. You shouldn't be able to discriminate against anybody. Well, I mean, that's true, but you have to look at it. It took until the women's movement in the 1920s for people really not to discriminate against women. It took until the 1960s for people not discriminating against African Americans. So there will always be something to move up in the totem pole, and the LGBT movement is next up. That there's a lot of anti-discrimination laws on the books that doesn't cover them, and that slowly they're going to start, grouping them in. And North Carolina is one of the few states that pushed them out. And so when that happened, these organizations, the NFL, Google, Microsoft, Apple, which Apple, Tim Cook, guess what? He's gay. That's probably not a good thing to do, is to pass a law that, would probably, PO one of the biggest corporations in the United States. Like that wasn't a very smart idea. And I know that maybe these governors, that they had this frame of mind that they just wanted to make people feel comfortable in bathrooms, but at the end of the day, there's no obvious way to enforce this law. And to think that you can is just ridiculous.
So if you're the NBA, Jared, do you keep the All-Star game where it is, or where would you move it?
I think you talk to the state of North Carolina, and if they refuse to repeal the law, you pick up and you move to Atlanta, because it's the next biggest, closest destination. You can move to D.C. as well. D.C. is just right over there. You just pick up and move. I mean, let's be honest. It's the NBA All-Star game. Who doesn't want it? A lot of cities would be like, hey, you know what? We'll take it on short notice and just do it.
We'll take the revenue, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you have to keep it somewhere kind of close to where it was originally planned to be, because the people that bought the tickets, it's going to be really wrong for them to have to go all the way across the country or halfway across the country even, or have to sell their tickets because it moved.
Yeah.
Some people have probably had this marked on the calendar since they found out it was going to be in Charlotte. So
Yeah, and that's gonna do it for us here on the Extra Point. Hope you guys listened to the show and had a great time. So that's gonna do it for us. Same time, same place next week. You'll listen to the Extra Point here on WEGL 91.1 FM.